Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So this is the third session on strengthening federalisms in the India Economic Forum that is being organized by CII and the Skoch Group. In this session, we will discuss how to strengthen the federal finance or the fiscal federalisms. Now the subject is a little technical, and I'm just going to give you a perspective, very simple perspective, not a very technical perspective of the federal aspects of governance, what we really mean by federalism, and how it is relevant, and what are the basis of the contemporary challenges. These are the things that we are going to discuss here in this session. Before I introduce the panelists, a very eminent panelist here, let me just say a few words about federalism. The federalism is a method of dividing powers so that the general and the regional governments are each within a sphere, remain independent, and at the same time they cooperate. So both autonomy and cooperations are inbuilt in the definition of federalisms. And if we emphasize the word cooperations, we sometimes use the word cooperative federalisms, whereby both the union and the states, or the federal government or the state government, they cooperate with each other. If it's a multi-order federalism, then all three orders of government, they cooperate with each other. So federalisms, or the federal form of government is quite important, and all big countries are federal. Whether you take US, you take Brazil, you take Argentina, Canada, except China. But the constitution is not federal, but the functioning of China is very federal in nature. There are two processes by which the federal governments or the federalisms devolves. One is that you are coming together, like US, the many federating units came together and you form a federations. The other, which is the case here in India, that you are devolving the powers. India was one country, and you devolve the powers, created many subnational governments. So certainly, when the processes are very different, whereby many federating units coming together and forming a federations, the power of the states are there. The power of the states are more, or the powers of the regional governments are more than the powers of the federal government. Whereas if you devolve the powers from the top, then certainly the powers of the central government or the federal government or the union government is little higher than the subnational governments. This particular form of governments have been adopted in big countries, and this has been adopted in some of the small countries. This has also been found as solutions, treated as a solution in a post-conflict environment such as Bosnia, Sudan, Nepal, and even Sri Lanka. So most countries are federal in nature, and this concept actually it evolves over a period of time because the systems are not the same. So India has made about 100-odd constitutional amendments. US made 27 constitutional amendments. Brazil has changed their constitution 7 times. So it evolves. And it also a functional concept, not really an institutional concept. So whether your constitution is federal, if it is not working, this may not be federal. The examples are, there are various examples, including the example of South Africa, whereby the scholars generally speak outside South Africa, that South Africa is the federal countries, but they are not allowed to speak that South Africa is the federal countries. And there are many non-negotiables under the federal polities. You have to have a written constitutions, and the constitution has to be very, very rigid, so that if you need to change the constitution, you have to have at least 2/3 majorities. At least, there should be at least 2 orders of government, and both have the power to legislate. There could be 3 orders of government, but at least there should be 2 orders of government. And in case any kind of conflict arises, there should be some courts to interpret the provision of the constitutions. There are 4 pillars of fiscal federalism. First is the assignments of responsibilities. Various orders of government need to be assigned certain responsibilities. And there is some order internationally. Some literature has been written on this. The prominent among them is by Richard Musgrave, the father of the modern public finance. When you assign the responsibilities, you also assign the concomitant revenue handles. Generally, there is a mismatch between the responsibility assignment and the revenue assignment. So there would be intergovernmental, that is the third pillar. So you need to transfer resources. Generally, the resources are transferred from the top to the bottom. There were cases when the resources were transferred from the local government upwards. The case there was the Yugoslavia and USSR, and many experts say that led to their disintegrations. So when you transfer resources, you also need certain institutions. There's some impartial institutions, and they can decide that how much money need to be vertically transferred and which state or which regional government should get what. So the examples there are like in Australia, whereby they created a Commonwealth Grant Commissions, because one of some national unit that is, they threatened to secede. So it's about 100 years ago, they created the Commonwealth Grant Commissions. On that lines, India created the Finance Commissions. Similarly, there are cases in South Africa whereby you have a Fiscal and Financial Commissions. So you have a revenue assignment, you also have expenditure assignments and intergovernmental transfers, and then the institutions. Now come to the case here in India. Article 1 of the Constitution says that India, that is Bharat, shall be the union of states. The Constitution does not say that India is a federation of states. It only says a union of states. Because if you adopt a federal form of government in the constitutions, this is what Ambedkar thought of, then there will be a provision of secessions. But in Indian constitutions, only coming in, you cannot go out. I'll just take a minute. Okay. So it's a union of states. But there are a number of features by which we can say that India is a federal constitution. First, that there are 2 orders of government, and both have the powers to legislate. There are institutions which transfer resources, for example, the institution of finance commissions. And between the states and the local government, you have institutions like the state finance commissions. So in India, the Federal Assembly, it comprises the union government, 28 states, because now the Jammu and Kashmir has been made union territories with legislature. So there are now 28 states. 10 of them are considered special category states or a hilly or northeastern states. They get special fiscal dispensations from the union governments as well as institutions like finance commissions. There are 9 union territories. 3 of them are with legislatures, and rest of them are other union territories. Down the line, after the 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment, we had Panchayati Raj institutions or panchayats. They are again at the three rungs. You have district panchayat, block panchayat, and the village panchayat. So about 250,000 odd panchayats and 4 million elected representatives. So we have so many governments in this country. They're in the urban areas, we have municipalities. There are three levels: municipal corporations, municipalities, and nagar panchayats. The definition of these bodies are not there in the constitution, but these are there in the conformity acts. So each states define what municipal corporations, what municipalities, and what nagar panchayats are. So generally, in India, the union government collects more taxes, they spend less. About 60% of the taxes are being collected by the union government, and they spend about 40%. The reverse is the case there in the states. The states collects about 40% and spend 60% of the total public expenditures. So there is a need of vertical transfers. So the finance commissions is one institution. There are other institutions. The planning commission was there in place. It has been substituted by Niti Aayog without any kind of financial powers. Then there are institutions including the interstate councils. The National Development Council was there in place, which has been substituted with the Team India. Between the state and the local government, we have institutions like the state finance commissions, okay, to transfer resources from the state consolidated fund to the panchayat and municipalities. In order to discuss the nitty-gritty of this, we have a very, very eminent panelist have with us. I don't think there could be more eminent panelists than we have here with us. We have Mr. N.K. Singh himself, he's here. He's chairman of the 15 Finance Commissions, and who is just, will be submitting his interim report very, very soon. So he's here with us, and he was the chairman of the FRBM Review Committee, of which the RBI Governor and the Chief Economic Advisor and the Director NIPFP, Mr. Ratin Roy, is not here at the moment. He was also a member. They submitted, they proposed kind of a path, the fiscal reforms path to the Government of India. And Stan K. Singh, he wears many caps, whether we call it, whether he's an economist or a politician or a civil servant. He started his career as a teacher in St. Stephen's College, teaching economics. And he actually learned economics from his childhood. His father was the first finance secretary of India. And he was a civil servant, a member of a very, very distinguished Indian administrative service, joined the service in 1964. And he retired from the Ministry of Finance as the Secretary Expenditure or Secretary Revenue. Then he moved to the Prime Minister's office as OSD, and later on he became the member of the Planning Commissions. He was also a member of Parliament, so he wears many caps. In one word, I can say that he's a senior statesman. And before I introduce the other panelist, I would like to request Dr. N.K. Singh.